let me breathe into your bones, whisper to bring you home. You're not alone, alone.
We are lost and abandoned, left to rot by the ancients. Free will be not free when you're enslaved with tyrants. Flaming giants, we must defy them. Honor is our defense of violence. They want it, but rich, they need it to pay forever.
Yeah, oh, I will. I'll do that fat ass you got.
Trying to fucking annoy me, man.
What's up, guys? This is Jose Galison. Welcome to another No Way Jose. Run this live today because I'm about to get hit with this hurricane here soon, and I don't know when I'm putting on another one. So I'm sorry to my patrons. I normally put this, usually paywall these, but yeah. And this is a little bit more of a timely topic, so I figured it was good to get out earlier than later. Like I said, also, I don't know when I'd really, I may lose power in a few days, so it's like I may not be able to post this later. So, hey, you guys are getting it early. Hopefully, I'm supposed to. I mean, if say I get lucky and this thing avoids me or whatever, I'm supposed to have Amy Lepore on Thursday. That will be paywalled for my patrons, and we'll be kind of covering emergency management. And because I think she's got a PhD in that. So, and she's kind of in my camp politically, and I'd say parapolitically as well, generally. So she's a little bit of schizo. I think it'll be good, and she's smart, so she knows theory. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see which way it goes. But yeah, so I'm just putting this out live for you guys today. I also got people mentioning already the morning streams with this hurricane thing. Assuming if I fucking end up being all right and this doesn't end up being a big deal, I probably will put out a few morning streams. But I mean, as of right now, I am prepping the shit out of my house. Getting ready to go, considering evacuating. We'll see. So I'm not really like the morning streams aren't a priority, but I don't know. Let's say it shifts like significantly north or south or slows down like a lot, and yeah, I'll probably knock out a morning stream here or there, especially if I don't lose power. So we'll see. But yeah, I have Ken Silva with me today. We are going to kind of cover the Trump assassination attempt stuff. With this being a live stream, feel free to ask questions. Part of why I want to do a live stream too is because with all this hullabaloo with the hurricane stuff, I haven't been able to prep like I usually do. So hopefully you guys give me good questions in the chat. I'm sure you will. But for those who pay attention to my show, you should know that we've already covered this. So this is somewhat a follow-up, somewhat not. Last time I had Ken on, all that had happened so far was, all that had happened, I say it like it's not much, it's quite a bit, but the first assassination attempt, now there's been a second, but now we have Ken back. He just came back from the Butler rally. They did it again, so I'm interested. We were supposed to do this earlier, I think on Thursday, but this actually worked out better since now we're getting him literally as he just got back from Butler. But let's get Ken in here. What's up, my man? How you doing?
Hey, pretty good. Yeah, that's exactly right. I actually just got back to my apartment like 15 minutes ago after spending about 10 hours in the car. But I've got in my hands some hot documents. We got Crooks's autopsy report, 2 toxicology reports, which I haven't published yet, but I'm happy to give your viewers the scoop, especially since we're live tonight and we can discuss that, yeah. And a 1-page coroner's report. So the reason I had to drive there to get this stuff is because if you follow me on Twitter, you probably know I've been kind of fighting this kind of FOIA battle. And I got a call last Wednesday saying, okay, well, we got the records. We're going to mail them to you. And I asked, well, are you just sending them to me or are you sending them out to multiple parties? And they said, well, we're sending them to multiple other people. And after all the trouble I've been through trying to get these, I really wanted to get the scoop on it. So I said, you know what? Trump's going to be there this weekend, double up. I'll just go up there and get the records. That way I could publish first before like NBC or somebody else claims the scoop on it. So, yeah, happy to talk about all that and more. We visited the parents' home on Saturday and did some other reporting on the ground. So yeah, we can get into it.
Yeah, nice. I guess you can kind of take it where you want. Like, I feel like we should probably focus in on the Butler stuff since that is timely. I guess also the documents as well. So I don't know really what you want to lead with. Obviously, you know what's going to be hotter than other things. I haven't really had a chance to look. I saw the documents online. I haven't really had a chance to process them. So I don't know if there's anything really significant. The toxicology you said you haven't released yet. So obviously, if that's a dud, you know what to lead with. But yeah, anywhere you want to take it. You just came back from this Butler, rally. So it's like Trump coming back after. So we have that, and then also between all the documents. I mean, you choose where you want to go with this.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I drove through Butler on Saturday, the day of the rally, but I actually didn't even attend. My media credentials were denied. I guess they wanted to let the international media in that like hates Trump, but there was like Asian media, like from Japan. Oh, like it was a big hullabaloo. But on that day, I visited Crook's parents' house instead. And we can get into that later. Let's just break down the autopsy report that I published this morning. I'm going to assume that viewers have watched the first part that we did, I think like a month or two ago, and are kind of familiar with a lot of the security failures and the basic timeline or sequence of events. We're going to go deeper into that. The significant thing that stood out to me in the autopsy report is that the fact that Crooks had 5 gunshot wounds. He had an entry wound, an exit wound, a re-entry wound, and then 2 re-exit wounds. So I don't know. I guess they're arguing if it's one shot, which the government's position is, they'd be arguing that the bullet kind of fragmented on the re-entry and made 2 re-exits. I haven't closely analyzed the report. Because I've been driving all day. There's probably people online that know more about what's in this report than I do, actually. I just skimmed it, wanted to get it online as fast as I could. But I think that was the big one to me. It raises a lot of questions about who actually shot Crooks and when, because, there's the controversy where Crooks fires 8 times. There's that 9th return shot. And then it's a whole 10 seconds later that the Secret Service put the final shot in Crooks. So it was actually a local cop that was the 9th shot. So that was kind of like the big takeaway of the autopsy report.
Yeah, do you remember what was the official narrative on how many bullets he supposedly ended up taking, before we got the, obviously you just got the autopsy, so it'll be, that kind of, I don't know, I guess we can extrapolate from there, but I believe if I recall, he was supposedly only shot once from my recollection, so you would think I don't remember how many bullet holes you said, or at holes in or out, I guess. Was it 5, I heard?
5. Yeah, 5 when you count all the exits. Yeah, I suspect that something really bizarre is going on. Because, the FBI's official position that he was only shot once. And this came up at a congressional hearing last month where Clay Higgins, one of the better guys on the task force, he released a report like last month saying, well, the Secret Service put the final kill shot, but a local cop with the 9th shot probably hit Crooks's rifle and caused shrapnel to go in his face, which is why he stopped shooting after 8 shots. And then there's just nothing for 10 seconds before the Secret Service finally puts him down. But the Allegheny County medical examiner who actually testified at the hearing said, no, there's no evidence that he was shot by the local cop. Moreover, there's no evidence that the local cop even hit the rifle. And the FBI backs that up, even though a photo of the rifle shows that a chunk in the stock is missing. So if somebody's lying, it doesn't really make sense. If the local cop missed, then why did Crooks stop shooting after 8 shots? I think the feds are up to something funny. You would say, well, why would they lie about something this big, commit perjury, just to try to make it seem like the Secret Service was the hero? Would they do it for something that petty? I mean, and maybe. We really don't know.
I don't know. I don't feel like the FBI cares too much about things like perjury. I mean, you followed things like Trinadu's case, where in one of his many cases, they literally argued that they are allowed to.
Yeah.
That was their legal argument. So they do stuff like that. It wouldn't be surprised. It's standard. But yeah, this is kind of my thinking. Doctore 420 shows up to a lot of these. He said he got hit twice, one shot fragmented. That's the only explanation for 5 wounds on 2 shots. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it sounds like some are saying 1, some are saying 2. Either way, it's like, I mean, even, I guess, yeah, that would make sense. I mean, I don't know how common it is for something to fragment and then also exit. Because I would feel like it would, if something fragmented, it would lose a lot of velocity and likely just get trapped in tissue. But I don't know. I guess that's possible. It could fragment and exit. So that would make sense. But I do feel like this obviously, that just indisputably throws out 1. I can't find it plausible that 1 bullet somehow makes 5 holes. Like that's a little too much for me. Like, I guess it's theoretically maybe possible in the same sense that the magic bullet is theoretically possible. JFK, it just gets to the level of it's not very plausible. But yeah, I don't know. What about that toxicology report? Is there anything interesting there?
All right, brand new stuff.
Was he fucked up?
I'm reading this on the fly. So the FBI held a press conference a month ago and said that Crooks was on no drugs no like illegal narcotics, but they didn't say whether he might have been on prescription drugs, antidepressants, anything else. There's indications that he might have had early signs of schizophrenia. He even, I think, searched for that on Google. So I was interested in getting the toxicology reports to see, whether in fact he was on any prescription drugs. And from what I can tell, they did not test for that. So I've got reports on laboratory findings. I'll put it up for the camera. I'm going to publish this tomorrow, but they list, oxycodone, fentanyl, methamphetamines, barbiturates, methadone, amphetamine, carisoprodol. I don't know what that is, but, not detected. So he tests negative for all of that, but I had no indication that they went beyond that. And I was actually talking to Jesse Trinadu. I sent him this report, and on my car ride home today, I gave him a call and asked him about his thoughts. And he said, well, if the cause of death is obvious, a bullet to the brain, they usually don't test for drugs. And if it's like it's not an OD or anything, they're not going to go above and beyond. So obviously the answer to that is like, well, this is an extraordinary case. These mass shootings, like even normie boomers have questions about what kind of prescription drugs might play into this. This is something like we need, if nothing else, for the historical record. But it seems like the officials are going to be able to hide behind like, oh, we followed the guidelines, which don't call for testing of prescription drugs.
Yeah.
I still need to look at this report further. I'll probably send it to like a pharmacist or somebody with more experience in this, then I can confirm that they didn't test for prescription drugs. But this seems to be like a pretty big oversight, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for real. And I guess now they've cremated him. I believe we talked about this last episode. So it's, I mean, unless they carried any sort of, samples, which I highly doubt they would hold on to any extra. Maybe they did. And even then, that would be whether you can get them to test it. It's another story. Either way, looks like that ship has sailed, so we probably won't ever get that. That's gone. I mean, although, would we really be too surprised if he was on antidepressants? I guess it would be nice to know. I'm kind of surprised he wasn't on any drugs. Like, I don't know. I guess if I was going to do something like that, I'd probably be fucked up on some shit. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if you're going to die, you might get, hyped up to get yourself in the right headspace whatever you feel like that needs to be. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's surprising that he's not, to me.
And one other thing of note is he actually tested. He was like suffering from lead poisoning or something, which he had elevated levels of lead in his blood. And I guess living in a crappy Pittsburgh suburb, it was probably water poisoning. But Jesse did point out that causes irritability. I know it can make your IQ go down, but this guy was a high IQ. I don't think lead causes psychosis or anything. So that doesn't really explain much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I chuckled there because it reminded me of Tommy Boy. How like throughout the movie it was like an ongoing joke. It's like, did you eat paint chips as a kid? Yeah. So okay, all right. This guy had some lead issues. That's interesting. All right. What can we? Is there anything of interest from your visits with the family? I mean, I guess it sounds like you got to talk to them. I don't know who of the family, or if it was all of them. If you were able to be on the premises, I don't know. I guess just kind of whatever information you have there.
Yeah, I did. I didn't talk to the family.
Oh,
We
okay.
talked to some of the neighbors.
Oh, okay.
Talked to quite a few actually. Some off the record, some on the record. Some gave me their names. I'll be putting them in stories in the days to come. What can we say about the visit? Well, yeah, you mentioned the cremation, which also, that erases the possibility of solving the mystery of, the 5 gunshot wounds if other independent people can't examine the body. Well, but one of the neighbors told me that the ashes are inside the house. So they cremated the body. The father's got the ashes. They are still living there. If anybody had questions about that, his blue Toyota was in the driveway when I was there. I believe he was home. I went up to the door and knocked. He had like a Ring doorbell and he didn't answer. I left my card. Yeah, pretty much the neighbor said they were just really reclusive people. We didn't know much about them. They'd see that nursing home that Crooks worked at. He would be walking up the hill. He would walk there even in the cold. So they kind of just thought he was like a quiet, hardworking kid. And other than that, yeah, I guess a lot of people said you see cars with black tinted windows going up and down right now. So the feds are obviously still monitoring the situation. The parents are under heat because they built bombs in that house. So it's really hard to believe that the parents didn't know something was up. I think he's quoted saying, Tom or my boy would get packages, but I didn't know what they were, what was in them. Yeah. How did he build Anfo bombs with like remote control detonators? Like that's.
Yeah,
just,
do you make those at home, or does the FBI just give them to you free
yeah,
exactly. Like ready to go? We don't know. All right, let's. I guess let's. One of the angles I've seen you go on, I didn't really get a chance to look into at least on the first assassination attempt. Was this van angle I kept seeing you going on about? Is there what is that? Is that something of value to even go into? I've seen you dig into that a little bit. I never really got into it. I think by the time people were digging into the van stuff, that's when the second assassination attempt happened. People got a little bit distracted. That's ringing a bell, right? I am correct. There was some sort of
very
van
much
thing.
So. Yeah, the van is a big thread that I'm still trying to tug on. So the night of the shooting on July 13th, it's about 150, 200 yards away from the AGR buildings is this neighborhood where one of the residents saw a van being towed away and apparently a bomb squad responding to it. And we really this guy gave an interview to Fox and the Daily Mail, and that was kind of that. We never heard anything about the van. And there's, rumors that it was, towed away and taken to Arizona. Like there's some wild conspiracy theories about the van. I don't really know what to make of it. But I did confirm that there's some people saying, oh, the neighbor actually lived 5 miles away. Couldn't have been there. I confirmed that this did happen. It was like 200 yards away. I went to the spot. I left my card for him. He wasn't home. And meanwhile, I've got another FOIA out with the Pennsylvania State Police because they were one of the responding agencies saying, do you have any records on this? And I believe under the law, they're at least going to have to tell me if they have records. If they say, well, the matter's under investigation, we're not going to give you the records, fine. But you at least have to confirm that there are records and they are part of the assassination investigation, which would be a big revelation in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, he said Tony Saruga said this van could be linked to a shipping container used by McVeigh Nichols. I don't just bringing up the chat. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who this Tony Saruga guy is either. I know there's been a lot of different people that popped up out of nowhere that I never even heard of that seem to be going all different wild angles with it. I don't know. It's just been there's been a lot of wild theories have spawned out of the assassination attempts. And don't get me wrong, I've probably helped spur some of them. I'm just saying, there's been a lot of people who have been milking lots of content out of this. So I don't know who this guy is. I don't know. I've seen wild claims all over the place on Twitter ever since this stuff popped off. So I don't know who the Saruga guy is. I don't know the validity of that. That seems like a wild jump. So yeah.
So Joe Rogan's actually mentioned Saruga. He's this guy that claims that he's got a trove of like all the GPS data for every phone in the country. And this guy's come up with some wild theories. Like there was a shooter on the water tower that zip lined down to escape. He's a con man and a grifter.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm not the least bit surprised. There's a lot of those. That's kind of what it's getting at. A lot of those coming out of the woodworks. Is there anything new on the social media side of things? I know we talked about this last time. Has there been any more that's come out from that? I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit. I believe they'd said he was linked to some foreign accounts. I don't know. Is there anything new there that you can recall? No. Okay.
Nothing new.
All right. Is there anything else pertinent in relation to the first assassination attempt that you feel like we need to cover before we start talking about the second? Is there any? Go ahead.
Okay, two big stories I published last week. There was a plainclothes ATF agent that was on the site in, quote, his personal capacity. And this has come out through actually the Senate Homeland Security Committee released transcripts of all its interviews with the secret, like everybody it's interviewed, they released the transcripts, which is great. I haven't even gotten through all of them, but there's some really interesting stuff. And one of them was Secret Service agent told the Senate committee that I'm walking around, it's like 4:30, 2 hours before the shooting. And some guy comes up to me and says, well, I don't think this railing is like safe, like for crowd control. And I said, well, who are you? And he said, oh, I'm ATF. And he was like plain clothes. And the Secret Service agent didn't ask for his credentials. And she was just like, oh, okay, that's weird. And later, there were questions about who this guy was. And the ATF then said he was there in his personal capacity, which, okay, well, why was he like behind the scenes with the Secret Service people? And this is coupled with the news that came out in the days after the shooting that somebody on the rooftop, like in the minutes after the shooting, sent a photo of Crooks to the ATF for, quote, facial recognition, which doesn't make sense why the ATF would be doing that at all. So that was one big story. And the other big story I did is that the person who was in the command center coordinating all the communications was the special agent in charge of the Buffalo field office, which is freaking crazy to me. Like especially,
you want to remind our audience why that's significant?
Oh, well, yeah, I'll get to that. But the special agent in charge is like, you're in charge of the entire territory for your agency. You are not going to be just another grunt, like working under somebody else, under a site agent coordinating communications. It's super bizarre about why this guy would be there. Mm-hmm. And of course, Buffalo is where the Buffalo shooting happened, with the infamous case where this kid was chatting with a Fed online like 20 minutes before the shooting. Moreover, there was a story in the Buffalo News about the FBI having a special program to track potential school shooters. So, I mean, the significance of that, I'm not necessarily making a connection, but these are things worth mentioning. It's just, like, why does Buffalo always turn up? Like, that's McVeigh's home. McVeigh was a security guard there. It's just a really
Well, we had
spooky.
that Buffalo shooter, right? And wasn't there a weird loner? I forget the specifics of the Buffalo. I can't remember if that's the one BX covered a bunch or not, but I'm pretty sure that was the one
Yep.
that like had some sketchy dude that clearly may have got duped into, may have been talking to an FBI agent in a chat room or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Like one of
On
those.
on Discord, which Crooks also had a Discord, and people will tell you, oh, every kid has a Discord, but I just think that's worth noting because it seems like a lot of grooming and Fed posting happens on Discord.
Yeah, it is interesting that you brought up. I didn't even think of the angle that like the level of his role. It wouldn't make sense for him to be like chilling there in the capacity that he was. And it reminded me of I literally just today was listening to my buddy Austin's coverage of the Omar Mateen like Pulse nightclub shooting, and he was talking about like for some reason he was talking about Aquino's book Mind War, and I guess the co-writer on that was a 2-star general, and I was like. And I don't know if maybe it's just because I was prior military that caught my eye, but like, okay, yeah, Aquino himself was a colonel, a full bird colonel, I believe. Maybe he was a lieutenant colonel, I can't remember. But either way, that's fairly high. So a lot of people bring him up and like, whoa, look at this spooky guy involved in Satanism, involved in like, seems like Phoenix stuff and like very spooky. But I didn't even realize that the guy who co-wrote one of his spook books was a 2-star general. I'm like, that's fucking huge.
That is
like,
huge, yeah.
like that's up there. Like 2-star general is like you're running some shit. Like it only goes up to 4. And it, like I think it was 5 once. So it's like yeah, 2-star general is big shit. So anyways, that was a side tangent, but it is a good point. That yeah, it is weird that he was there in that capacity. But I don't know. Things are spooky. Well, I guess speaking of spooky, we have this guy Ralph. He looks like he was hanging out in the bushes and then decided to disappear, and they found a gun staged all perfectly like in the bushes, is the impression of the story I got. And then somehow they found this guy later, and oh, here's this weird dude, which is really... It's weird. It's hard not to look at Ralph and realize and think this guy glows. Like what? What is going on? I've heard a lot of rumors. I've heard rumors that his wife was like I think some sort of Victoria's Secret exec, and he was jet setting all over the place. Ex-wife. I don't know the truth of that one. I remember someone on my live stream show brought that up. I hadn't looked into that claim, but he had been all over the place. This guy had been recruiting for Ukraine, like lots of weird stuff. Just kind of what is your general feeling of the Ralph one? Does it pass the sniff test for you? I know you probably. I don't know. I feel like you've probably put maybe a little bit more time into the Crooks stuff so far, but how's your coverage of the Ralph coming along? The second assassination attempt. What's your sniff test on that?
Yeah, he definitely glows. I think he was some kind of like useful idiot
Yeah.
that the people in the so-called deep state probably manipulated. I don't know about his wife being a Victoria's Secret model. I was sitting
No, model, an executive,
okay.
which makes it weirder that he was jet setting around and especially if you know the Epstein connection to the Victoria's Secret, and then a high up exec, you're like, what is going on here? This is getting weird. Small world.
I met the ex-wife in court last week for his son's trial for child porn charges.
Oh yeah, you were at that. That's
she
right.
she was just simple, like probably lower middle class lady who's just worried about her son.
Okay. Maybe he had multiple wives. I don't know. That was just some shit in the chat. I haven't had a chance to verify it. I'm just saying there's a lot of weird stuff about it. A lot of information gets thrown around. I haven't had a chance to verify everything. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. So my take on the Ralph case, and I'm going to try to cover the trial, God willing. I'll be able to make it down to Florida and really get to the bottom of this. But I think he was a useful idiot that, yeah, he probably was told by somebody with intelligence connections that you should go try to kill Trump's going to be here, go do it. But I don't think it was a serious plot that was meant to succeed and kill Trump. If anything, I think it was meant to get this guy was obviously going to get caught. If he succeeds, fine. I'm sure people would be happy. But if not, it kind of obfuscates from July 13th, which I think is far more suspicious if you want to look at potential, quote, inside jobs. I think this is just a nut job that didn't, like, there wasn't, Trump's security team wasn't setting up Trump to be killed that day. they notified him. One of the bizarre things, though, is they shot at him, and he somehow got away and was on the lam for like 45 minutes until he was arrested in another county. So I'd like to know how he was able to get away. But other than that, yeah, spooky guy recruited people, to go fight in Ukraine. His main partner, he says in his book, was an Israeli, which nobody's really explored that in depth. Like, who is this Israeli guy? But yeah, I guess we'll find out more as the case develops.
Yeah, that is right. You did bring up that I actually covered this on, I believe, a couple of my morning streams that I did last week. I covered your coverage of the CP with Oren Routh, his son. I guess I just you can kind of recap it here for my audience that didn't see those streams, and also just kind of, I don't know, just general thoughts. It is weird. It does sound like this was something that they were in work before all of this happened. So I know a lot of people are jumping to conclusions. I mean, myself included, to be honest, with things like the Vegas shooting, the parallels there. How look at all these people getting hit with CP. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm also not. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised too, where you can sit down and make it seem like this had been something in work. I'm not a nerd enough to know. I mean, how easy these things are to post hoc throw this in later and make it look like you've been looking into it. I have no idea. Just kind of general thoughts about the contents. I know he got released recently. I guess I don't know if if there's any takeaways you had that you didn't really that I didn't really get to that you didn't really get to cover in the thing just from being there. Well, just thoughts in general on that aspect.
Yeah, you referenced the Vegas case, which was where Paddock, the alleged shooter's brother, goes on the news and says, "That's not my brother. There's no way he would have been able to do all of this." And then he gets hit with CP charge, which he's eventually, I don't know if he's acquitted or they just dropped the charges, but the feeling was that the feds pressuring him to shut up. And I don't think that's the case of what's going on here. My initial thought was that was what they're, put a CP charge on the son to force the father to take a plea deal, because the father seems like a narcissist who wants to go on trial to be in the center of attention. But the reason I think this is legit is because that he was, some tech company flagged him for CP to the feds in late 2023. The feds passed that tip to the local sheriff, who actually went to Ralph's home in February and left his card that the mother got and told the son, Oren, that, yeah, the sheriffs are looking for you. She didn't say why. And then finally he was arrested last month after the father, tried to kill Trump, and then they're searching the son's home in relation to that. They find a bigger trove of CP. And I guess there's a question of, did they arrest him now for political reasons, or like, why were they sitting on the case beforehand? But I mean, the charges described in court sounded legit, and they sounded really heinous. This is like 76409A type child porn that I wouldn't even want to. I probably shouldn't say that word for the algorithm, but I wouldn't even describe some of this sick stuff that he was said to have been found with, along with drugs, which I don't even think he disputes, like a bunch of MDMA and party type drugs like that.
Yeah, because I do recall. Yeah, you said, I believe you mentioned a second ago that like I forget the center. It's like kind of the main CP center, I believe, in the country. Seemed to said they flagged him. I don't know how that works particularly. If they just are always running online things to where you click on the wrong link or somehow it flags. I don't know how this stuff works. But essentially, he was flagged, and it was a good, almost I think about a year ago. So yeah, it sounds like they've been sitting on this information. I guess my question is, I just don't know, is that something that someone later could, post hoc make it seem like this happened a while ago? It sounds like you said there was other people talking around, but it is weird that it didn't seem to get acted on until after the fact. But, whatever. Maybe that's what it took for them to move on it. I I mean,
Yeah, I
once they
think
start looking into these, the people surrounding this individual, they may go, "Oh shit! Like, here's this thing we dropped the ball on. This isn't a good look. We should
I think
probably
that's what it
probably
was.
get this."
Because the sheriff did visit his house in relation to the allegations. And yeah, it's like the National Center for Exploited and Missing Children.
Mhm.
And it's a nonprofit center, but it has some kind of charter for the government to be where if tech companies like Facebook, Google, they detect illicit activity, they send those tips to this nonprofit, which then examines it and works with the FBI and passes it to the so-called proper channels.
Yeah. And I did want to bring up something. A lot of people, with something like this, people see this and they go, "Oh my God, this person must just be super weird," or maybe they're super glowy. And it's like, so it's like they look at these individuals and they go, they're either super glowy or super weird. And it's like when I had Nick Bryant on my show a while back, we were kind of talking about SRA type stuff, just like really dark CP stuff like that, and we were kind of talking about how that interlays with things like feds. So and I kind of asked him a similar question along those lines, getting at like, what's up with this? And he's like, this is the kind of people that this sort of work attracts. Weird, broken, fucking people. So I just don't know if there's necessarily even sometimes a distinction to be had. If you were, I'm not even saying this is the case, but let's say Ralph is some glowy that was put on some task to do something along these lines. I don't know if it would look much different because these are a lot of times these people that are working on these sort of things. I brought up Aquino earlier. One of the weirdest motherfuckers you'll ever see. You talk about David Ferry, who was the guy who was running the Civil Air Patrol that had like Harvey Oswald and stuff like way back when. That dude was weird as fuck, and he glue like the sun. So it's not at all uncommon that these usually weird fucking people. And a lot of time, because the kind of stuff we're talking about is the type of people who probably have dirt on them, and that's a lot of times how they got kind of rolled up into this type of game of intrigue. Not your lower level like FBI guy, but when we're talking in like international intrigue type shit, yeah, these are gonna be some weird fucking dudes. So I don't know. It's hard to tell, what these people are from any range of that. I guess on Ralph, anything else specifically on Ralph you want to cover before we kind of get into the origins of these?
No, I guess we'll just have to see how the case develops. There's Max Blumenthal went on Scott Horton's show to talk about Ralph's book. I recommend people listen to that. That would probably be a good primer on that whole case.
Yeah, I haven't really got a chance to look into that much. The little bits I've heard people talk about just kind of sounds like I don't know, blue-pilled newspeak kind of deal. Is kind of what it sounded like. Just kind of what you would expect to hear from CNN generally. Maybe a little bit more screechy, a little bit more over the top. All right, I did see recently. I covered this on the show a while back. Trump was put out some tweet implying something along the lines of that he was heavily implying Iran may have had something to do with it. It's weird too because just the other day he then said something implying his political enemies may have been the ones who did it. So it seems like he's kind of playing this fast and loose game of who killed me? Who knows? It could be anyone that works to my benefit. But he definitely was kind of pushing the Iran angle. Initially, I'm kind of glad he's pushing it more towards his political enemies because that's probably more accurate in my opinion. It's more the calls coming from inside the house in my opinion. But yes, there was his pushing the Iran thing. He wasn't the first one. Matt Gaetz came out a while back, said he had some sort of special fucking super duper intel that said, oh, there's these teams coming from all these different areas. One of which being Iran, and that was the most sophisticated team. Whatever the fuck a team means, he couldn't really say. Actually, I think he did say. He was on Dave, and he basically was kind of like, essentially was like, yeah, something along the lines of anything more than a couple people. They're like, okay, well, that means nothing. Yeah, he's not able to give any information. It's just, trust me, bro, which, okay, whatever, to some extent I get, if it's classified, but it's like, all right, don't expect me to think that means anything because I don't really give a shit if you can't tell me. But yeah, so the Iran thing's been pushed. But I do believe you pretty early on had kind of covered, that the Iran angle seemed to be bullshit. I saw some other article that was shared around recently. Some big names in our camps were sharing it around Although I think he may have been a little bit more Johnny on the spot, but whatever. We don't have to play the credit game. Just kind of what are your thoughts on the possible origins of these attacks? Is Iran coming after us? What's going on?
Yeah, I need to write my own article to kind of lay out my thoughts on this comprehensively. But so I wrote an article last year on this case where Iran was supposedly trying to assassinate John Bolton. And it turns out that the hitman, that some guy in Iran was talking online to an undercover FBI agent and said, "Hey, I want to hire you to assassinate John Bolton." Like that's really as simple as the case is. And they indicted the Iranian, but they're never going to try him because he's in Iran and they're not going to extradite him. So it was total fabrication, total nonsense. And so, of course, when Iranian rumors first circulated with the July 13th Trump shooting, probably maybe a week or two after it happened, that immediately my mind went to the John Bolton case. And it turns out, I think it's like the exact same operation. So there was a guy named Asif Merchant who was arrested on July 12th. He's a Pakistani with an Iranian wife, I believe. He had been to Iran. He does have connections with the military. And apparently he was trying to hire hitmen to take out Trump. But again, these hitmen were undercover FBI agents. And Republicans have really jumped on this because the government, the FBI and Homeland Security let Merchant into the country. And the Republicans are trying to imply that this was part of a sophisticated op that might have been part of the Trump assassination, when it's like, guys, this is obviously they let him into the country for the sting operation so they could arrest him. And I do think that this might have been some pre-designed operation to, again, muddy the waters about what really happened in July 13th and to make the idiot Republicans fall for another psyop, just like they did after the Oklahoma City bombing, and they believed that Iraq was involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, what else? That's pretty much it in a nutshell. If we want to go into more details about why this case is totally nonsense, Merchant is in custody. He'll probably take a plea deal, and we won't know much about it. But there have been records that show how dubious the case was, where he had to get money wired from his actual family to give $5,000 to the FBI agents, which is one of the reasons he was charged. He did give them $5,000, but the money didn't come from the Iranian government. It came from his wife in Iran. So the whole case, if you just scratch on it, you can see how dubious it is.
Yeah, and he was trying to hire people for $5,000 to kill the president. Okay, all right. I don't know if that's going to work out well for you. What was I trying to? I totally just brain farted what I wanted to talk about next. Fuck.
I could go.
Go ahead.
So the significance, I guess, if you want to say why does this case matter at all, it's because the FBI, if they knew about this, why didn't they tell the Secret Service to have enhanced security for Trump at all these rallies? I guess if we're going to say this is legitimate to even talk about at all, that would be why. It's if the FBI did know about Merchant, he was on its radar, he was talking to undercover feds. So again, why was the security so loose at Butler?
Yeah. It is kind of wild that this is that's what they're using it to kind of allude to Iran, and yeah, it does smell like complete bullshit. I guess now that we've kind of backed up a little bit, it's been a little bit more time. It's been months now. Things are starting to probably come in a little bit more into focus. You've been covering this more than just about anyone I know. What is kind of your rough read? Obviously, I know this is where we get into speculation territory, but just kind of what are you feeling on this? All this, is this just kind of some weird phenomenon on the violence being ratcheted up? Do you think this is one entity, multiple entities? Do you buy the idea that there are multiple teams or groups or whatever you want to call it. There are actual people out there, because I believe it was supposedly Ukraine, Iran. I believe he did even admit Matt Gaetz admitted in there something along the lines of like a homegrown thing or something. Although I don't think they're alluding to that it was like FBI or something or CIA they're more alluding to probably, I don't know, good old McVeigh type or some shit. Although I don't know how that would make sense. Just kind of just generally, what's your read on it? What should most people's takeaway from this be? I guess.
Yeah, well, when it comes to Matt Gaetz, I don't think he's just pulling this stuff out of his ass. I do think that somebody with Homeland Security in a classified hearing told him this, and he's just uncritically parroting it.
Yep.
But it does seem like bullshit on the surface. I still haven't formulated like a theory of exactly what I think happened. I think the July 13th looked like a setup. I mean, ask yourself who benefits from a dead Trump and Iran being blamed. I mean, the country would be going to war with Iran. And who benefits from that? Israel. So am I saying Israel tried to kill Trump? Like, no, but that's if I'm looking at some kind of like op, I would look at like Israel coupled with the U.S. security state. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. But
I mean, you have to ask yourself who's kissing the wall with Ben Shapiro right now.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, people will say like, "Oh, Trump is pro-Israel, so like, why would they kill their own boy?" But I think both Trump and Biden were so old that they had kind of like established power networks in the U.S. independent of Israel, like that go back to the 70s. And so, like, as much of a shill as Biden and Trump are for Israel, the next generation is totally bought and owned for. Like DeSantis, like the kind of younger crop, the Kamala Harris, they're not going to stand up at all. I think Biden and Trump, neither one of them would actually underwrite a war with Iran because they are kind of just old, grumpy men that wouldn't do that kind of stuff, while the younger guys probably would. So, I guess pure speculation. We're getting towards the end of the show. Mm-hmm. I think that somebody tried to take out Trump and Biden at the same time to get totally bought and paid for politicians.
Yeah, it seems that you think that Ralph is more just probably of a crazy person. Is just kind of, I don't know, it's a copycat almost, if you will. Maybe there are some angles of like people out there that knows this crazy person's out there throwing him some intel. But I mean, this guy is a guy who is connected into groups that probably would have information. I don't know. I still do. The more I dig into Ralph and the little bits I see, it is hard not to go into full on schizo mode and see all the patterns. Because he was doing a lot of weird shit. I mean, he was hanging out in Ukraine. He was recruiting Afghanis. Like, this guy was living in Hawaii and then, working in this weird company that, like, looked like it was almost made up. Or I don't know. It's just a bizarre guy. And then somehow this guy ends up in Florida, and with a gun when he was living in Hawaii. It just is all too bizarre to really buy. I don't know. It is weird. Like, it is weird. How does this guy end up coming from Hawaii to Florida and then somehow have a gun and end up at the right golf course? Just seems like too many things lined up. I don't know. I guess I still don't have a strong opinion on what it was. It could be a million different things. It's just bizarre is all I can say. I don't know if you have any thoughts. That was just a little bit of a rant, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I think he's definitely glowy, but I think he's more of like a patsy. And I don't think that, what was that, September 15th, that day? I don't think that was like a sophisticated op. I think that was, some spook tipped off Ralph that Trump was going to be at the golf course. And like, hey, go get him, Tiger, and sending him for pretty much his death. And Ralph is so crazy that even if he says, like, oh, I'm a CIA asset, nobody's going to believe him in court. I think it's something more of that, something really sloppy, just intended to muddy the waters more, because I still think January 13th is a far more that looks like an actual they tried to trap and kill Trump, to be honest.
Yeah, one more thing. I remember I wanted to bring this up earlier when I brain farted. With Ralph, he also had this weird, I believe, a package he left somewhere, and there was also a letter which, in that letter, something along the lines of, it's almost as if he failed, is what it sounds like, is what the letter was implying, like kind of like, read this letter if I fail type deal, offering to give people money. I forget, it was something ridiculous, like 150K or something weird. I believe you covered that. Any thoughts? That was bizarre. I remember earlier it reminded me of that when you brought up the $5,000 hitman, and now we have the other extreme where somehow this guy is going to get like six figures, out of his ass, even though he was making like 3K in Hawaii or something, and he's going to pay off hitman via a letter. I don't know. It was very bizarre. Just thoughts on all that. I guess just kind of your general coverage of it. Just kind of the facts. Did I fuck that up? Was that generally right?
No, you're generally right. And the significance of that story is he gave this letter to an unnamed acquaintance months before his assassination attempt. And you're going to believe that his acquaintance, like, oh, yeah, just give me a box, and I'm just going to let this sit here. It reminds me of when Terry Nichols, like, hid a box, like, underneath his bed and told his wife, like, I'm going to the Philippines. I might never see you again, but don't open that box unless I actually don't come back. But what is the first thing that the wife does when Terry leaves for the Philippines? She opens up the box, and, like, you're telling me a roost boy or acquaintance didn't do that too? I really find that hard to believe. So that was my takeaway from, he had like a confession letter saying, if you're reading this, I either succeeded or not. You can finish the job for $150,000. Republicans are mad at the DOJ for kind of publicizing that. They're accusing the DOJ of like publicizing a bounty on Trump. But I'm of the opinion that all evidence should be made public.
Yeah.
I know there's like the hypocrisy of them concealing like the Nashville transgender manifesto for a year and then releasing Ralph's letter. But when they release stuff, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, no, there wasn't even anything in the letter about a means by which you get the 150K, though, was there? If I recall, I don't know, like if someone wrote a letter out to the world that says I will give you 150K to do this, I don't know if anyone genuinely thinks someone out there is going to go through the trouble of doing this and expect somehow 150K is just going to arrive to them. I don't know. I mean, you would think that'd be something you'd want to secure the means of payment prior to. I don't know. Just spitballing here. It just seems very bizarre. The letter itself is just bizarre. But I mean, I guess all of this is bizarre. Well, I don't know. Any final thoughts between all this? I guess I feel like I'm probably missing something that you've covered. But I mean, if there's any specific angle in relation to all of this that you've covered that we didn't really get to that you feel is pertinent and worthy to mention, now's your time. Otherwise, I guess we can get out of here.
No, I think we covered pretty much all the new information that I've put out the last week or two. We got some big, some reports are supposed to come out in the next couple months. So we'll probably find out some new information. There's more transcripts that I need to review. So I should come out with some pretty decent stories. And follow me on Twitter at JD_cashless and headlineusa.com.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I totally meant to do this earlier. Sorry, guys. Or sorry to Nadeau, but a real quick ad read for old Nadeau here. Just want to let you guys know this episode was brought to you by Nadeau. This is really great stuff. You guys can see I have a clean shaven face today. This is thanks to Nadeau Shave Co. It really is good stuff. It's more of an economical thing. It's also better. So it's like better and cheaper. So cheaper's not a bad thing, and a lot of people think cheap and they go, "Oh, am I getting a worse product?" No, you're going back to do a safety razor, one blade. I know it sounds like one blade, this is going to fuck my face up. No, it will not. I'm telling you, it's like baby smooth after shaving. It's good stuff. He's also got his new shave soaps, which I really dig those. But one standard issue gives you 100 stainless steel razor blades. It's $75 for the entire year. I mean, you guys know, if you're doing the multi-blade stuff, you know how much those run you up. Within a couple times, of getting new replacement blades, you're basically hitting that $75 basically. And you're fucking your face up with those. I mean, you're not getting as good of a shave. I'm telling you, once you switch over this, you'll see what I mean. And if you do shave in the reg, I highly recommend you get that quarter shave club. That puts you at about 25 cents per replacement blade. Go to doshaveco.com, use Jose at checkout, get you 10% off your entire order. But yeah, if those who want to support me, patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I do want to, just say I appreciate all the people who sponsor the show. I mean, with all this hurricane stuff going on, it really does come in clutch, having a little bit of a different money source. So, I mean, thanks, guys. Sorry, I'll try to honor my side of this agreement with all this stuff going on. It makes it a little bit harder. But if I can, hopefully we'll begin a bunch of morning streams. I also do have a packed week, assuming I don't lose power. So, yeah, I do want to give a shout out to my sponsors over at Patreon. I have my co-host Toad at Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad. I also have at Abrogate at ZOVERACK, at _Infinite Zeal, Jacob Daniel, the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, at Biblical Anarchy, then the homie Tim Tuttle at John Klebold. He's the one who made that dope edit at the beginning, and then Will Bell, who makes its delicious blueberry rabbit eye wine. Go get you some of that. But yeah, patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Follow me on Twitter at TowerGangJose. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and with that, we are out.